Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment or question comes from JJP Tech. In response to, I wish the Fantom was class compliant and system on operation vague. A mailbag I did in February 2023. And JJP writes, I still do not understand this stupidity of Roland and not making the Fantom class compliant. There is the Numa X platform piano for half the price and it's class compliant. Only recently they made the Juno-D6, 7 and 8 class compliant. What's going on? What's going on indeed is my response, because I've kind of struggled with the whole reason why Roland products over the last 10 years have not been class compliant when everybody else has been introducing products to the market that are class compliant. But my theory, and I've stuck to my theory because nobody's actually said no, that's not right. Nobody said it's wrong as well. So go figure from that. But my theory is that Roland came up with an integration chipset and code that allowed them to integrate their instruments using USB into a computer setup. And they basically continue to incorporate that pattern into instruments going forward because basically it worked and it was proven. And they've probably bought so many chips that it wasn't economical to scrap them and bring in a new bunch of chips. So they basically just wanted to use up what was in stock. Now the downside to what Roland's been doing is that they have to, of course, keep maintaining the drivers. And that becomes a problem because, you know, every year Apple release a new version of the operating system. You know, it goes from X to X to X to X to X, and if you can keep up with the platform names, you're better than I am, because I never can remember what the platform names are where we are at the moment. I couldn't even tell you what the latest Apple release is, purely because I keep stopping my machine from updating to it. The reason why I keep stopping my machine from updating to it is I've got a bunch of stuff that works on my Apple Mac at the moment, and I don't want to bugger it up. In terms of the Windows platform is generally a bit more stable than the Apple platform. And it's kind of horses for courses, to be honest, between the two, because what you trade off on the Windows platform in terms of stability, you lose in terms of horsepower. So, you know, people will probably shout at the screen, but the reality is, the way that the Apple Linux iOS OS system operates is far more efficient than the way the Windows OS operates, and therefore you get far more performance out of a Mac than you do out of a Windows machine, which means if you're running, you know, sort of processor, memory intensive applications, the Mac does it better, which is why for video, photographic, music, you know, the platform of choice has been, I say has been because it's kind of changing a little bit, but has been the sort of the Apple platforms. But now, of course, you know, Windows is a multi-tasking, multi-user application environment. Let's say application environment. Obviously, it's far more widely used than the Apple platform. But it doesn't give, for the same spec of machine, you don't get the same performance. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. So the issue for manufacturers, of course, is if you don't have class compliant applications that tell the machine how to work with the the instrument you're plugging into it, you've got to keep updating the drivers. So every time Apple release a new operating system, you've got to update your drivers so you know it works with it. And of course, a few years ago we had the whole Catalina thing, which is, for those that don't know, Catalina came along and dropped support completely for 32-bit drivers. So if you had an instrument that had a 32-bit driver, you would never get that working on Catalina. The problem with that was there was a whole raft, especially in the Roland camp, and I know I'm picking on Roland, but there was a whole raft of instruments in the Roland camp that just basically stopped working. Perfectly serviceable instrument, but would not work with the Catalina platform because the driver wasn't supported. It was a 32-bit driver, and Catalina only supported 64-bit drivers. Now, that is a problem. So at some point, somebody at Roland, I think, with the Juno, has taken a step back and basically recoded the platform by the sounds of it. Anyway, that's kind of my theory on the whole thing. As I said, that has been my theory for a period of time, and nobody said it's right and nobody said it's wrong. Go figure that one. Next one comes from a Gerard, and this was in response to Yamaha CX5M YRM 101 FM Composer Basics, mouthful, video I did in June 2023. And Gerard writes, I had one of these, the Mark 1 in 1984. Oh, do you know what? I wish I could have afforded one of these in 1984 because I would have had absolute great fun with it, because I have absolutely great fun with it now. And I used to run it synced to a drum machine and had it linked to several poly synths. I used to do live gigs with it, loading songs off cassette, hard work, but I loved it, and I still have the demos that I made with it. What a nice trip down memory lane. Well, it's always interesting to see somebody's experience using this computer stroke instrument, because it really is an instrument as well as a computer. But I have to be honest and say I am really impressed, given my gigging experience back in the day, of having to load patches from a disc on a synth. I am so impressed that you were loading patches into the machine from cassette. I do remember, as I say, doing it from disc. You're still talking about a minute. So, I think your lead man must have had the gift of the gab to keep your audience engaged while you were loading up the next set. And he wrote back and said, my singer used to basically tell rubbish jokes while I was frantically trying to get the next song loaded. Probably 1 to 2 minutes between every track. Oh God, that sounds shivers down my spine. But thanks for relaying your experience.